Urgent. God says, time will stop until your soulmate finds you. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this fictional, faith-inspired story begins on an ordinary night that would soon become unforgettable. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. There are seasons in life when it feels as though nothing is moving forward. The days seem to repeat themselves. The prayers seem to echo into silence. The dreams you've carried in your heart appear to remain just beyond your reach. In those moments, it can feel as though time itself has slowed to a standstill. Yet sometimes what feels like a delay is actually a season of preparation that only God fully understands. For many months, your soulmate had quietly wondered why every door they expected to open remained closed. They watched friends begin new chapters while their own life seemed to remain unchanged. At first, they questioned the waiting. Later, they accepted it. Finally, they began seeing it differently. Instead of asking, "Why hasn't my life changed?" they started praying, "Lord, what are you teaching me while I wait?" That simple question marked the beginning of an entirely new chapter. Meanwhile, your own fictional journey was unfolding with the same quiet purpose. You continued choosing kindness during ordinary days. You forgave people who never expected forgiveness. You encouraged those who had almost given up. Every small act of faithfulness seemed unnoticed by the world, yet heaven never overlooked a single moment. Although you could not see the full picture, every decision made with love and integrity was quietly shaping the future. Don't skip because something beautiful is waiting for you. One peaceful evening, your soulmate walked alone through a quiet garden where they often spent time in prayer. The gentle breeze moved through the trees, birds settled into the branches, and the setting sun painted the sky with warm shades of gold. Sitting on a weathered wooden bench, they opened the familiar journal that had followed them through every season. They slowly wrote, "Lord, there are moments when I feel as though my life has paused while everyone else keeps moving forward. Yet if this season has a purpose, help me embrace it with faith instead of frustration. Teach me patience that cannot be shaken by circumstances and hope that remains steady even when I cannot see what lies ahead." As they closed the journal, peace quietly settled over their heart. Listen carefully. This changes everything. The next morning, your soulmate met an elderly gardener caring for flowers at the community park. After exchanging greetings, the gardener smiled warmly and said, "Have you ever noticed that the strongest trees grow the slowest? They spend years developing deep roots before anyone admires their height." Your soulmate nodded thoughtfully. The gardener continued, "People often become discouraged during seasons when they cannot see growth. But beneath the surface, roots are becoming strong enough to support the blessings that will one day appear above the ground." Those words remained in your soulmate's heart long after the conversation ended. Meanwhile, your own fictional journey brought you to a community outreach event where you spent the afternoon serving meals and encouraging families facing difficult seasons. An elderly woman quietly thanked you before leaving. "You may think today was ordinary," she said with gentle gratitude, "but your kindness reminded me that hope still exists." Those simple words stayed with you throughout the evening. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. That night, your soulmate returned home and opened the journal once more. "Lord," they wrote, today you reminded me that waiting is never wasted when it is placed in your hands. If my journey feels slower than I expected, help me trust that you are strengthening my character, deepening my faith, and preparing me for whatever lies ahead. Let me never confuse delay with abandonment, and never mistake quiet seasons for empty ones. Closing the journal, they looked toward the stars shining above. Nothing around them appeared dramatically different. The same sky stretched overhead. The same streets remained peaceful. The same tomorrow waited beyond the horizon. Yet everything inside their heart had changed. They no longer believed life had stopped. They understood that God had been moving quietly all along, shaping hearts through patience, wisdom, compassion, and faithful perseverance. My beloved child, don't skip, because the next chapter will reveal how two fictional journeys begin moving closer together through ordinary acts of kindness, unexpected opportunities, and the quiet reminder that God's timing often unfolds one faithful day at a time, preparing hearts not only to meet one another, but to become the people they were meant to be. The day two paths began moving toward each other. ****. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this fictional, faith-inspired story now reaches a chapter where quiet preparation begins turning into unexpected opportunity. Stay until the very end, because what happened next changed everything. The days continued passing one by one, but neither you nor your soulmate viewed them the same way anymore. Instead of counting the days that had gone by, both of you began making each day meaningful. You discovered that every sunrise was another opportunity to grow in faith, serve others with compassion, and trust that God was still working even when His plans remained unseen. Your soulmate no longer woke with frustration. Instead, each morning began with gratitude. Before leaving home, they opened the familiar journal and whispered a simple prayer. Lord, if today is another day of preparation, let me embrace it with joy. Help me become more patient, more compassionate, and more faithful than I was yesterday. Prepare my heart for every person you choose to place in my path. After closing the journal, they stepped into the day carrying quiet confidence instead of anxious expectation. Meanwhile, your own fictional journey was changing in similar ways. You had stopped asking why certain prayers seemed delayed. Instead, you began thanking God for the lessons hidden inside the waiting. Every conversation became an opportunity to encourage someone. Every challenge became another chance to choose forgiveness instead of resentment. Every quiet moment became an invitation to draw closer to God. Don't skip, because something beautiful is waiting for you. One Saturday morning, a local church announced a community service project to help renovate an old neighborhood center where families gathered after school. Volunteers from different parts of the town were invited to participate. Some painted classrooms. Others prepared meals. Others organized books and supplies for children. Without knowing it, both you and your soulmate accepted the invitation. Neither of you realized that your separate journeys were slowly moving toward the same place. The work began early. Laughter echoed through the halls. Children ran happily across the playground. Neighbors greeted one another with warm smiles. Everything felt wonderfully ordinary. Listen carefully. This changes everything. Throughout the day, volunteers worked together without paying much attention to names or backgrounds. Everyone focused on serving. Your soulmate spent the morning repairing old bookshelves inside the reading room. You spent the same morning organizing donated school supplies nearby. At one point, an elderly volunteer struggled to carry several heavy boxes. Without hesitation, both of you walked over to help. You smiled politely. So, looks like we had the same idea. Your soulmate laughed softly. I guess kindness has a way of bringing people to the same place. The conversation lasted only a few minutes. Yet something about it felt peaceful. There was no need to impress anyone. No pressure. No dramatic moment. Only two ordinary people choosing kindness on an ordinary day. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. During the lunch break, volunteers gathered outside beneath large trees to rest together. The event organizer invited everyone to briefly share one lesson God had been teaching them during the past year. Several people spoke. Some mentioned patience. Others talked about forgiveness. Then it became your soulmate's turn. They quietly said, I've learned that what feels like God's delay is often God's preparation. I used to believe my life had stopped. Now I believe He was strengthening my faith before opening the next chapter. A peaceful silence filled the gathering. Moments later, you shared your own reflection. I've learned that God's greatest blessings often begin in ordinary places. Sometimes the people who change our lives first appear as strangers serving beside us in simple acts of kindness. Several volunteers smiled. No one realized how closely those two thoughts reflected one another. As the afternoon slowly came to an end, the community center looked completely transformed. Fresh paint brightened every room. Shelves were filled with books. Children laughed with excitement as they explored their renewed gathering place. Walking home beneath the evening sky, your soulmate opened the journal one more time. Lord, today reminded me that you often answer prayers quietly. Thank you for every conversation, every opportunity to serve, and every lesson that continues shaping my heart. Help me remain faithful in the ordinary moments because I know you often prepare extraordinary blessings through simple acts of love. Meanwhile, you also ended the day with a grateful prayer. Father, thank you for allowing me to serve others today. Whether I fully understand your plan or not, I trust that every faithful step matters. Continue teaching me to walk with humility, kindness, and hope until every chapter unfolds according to your perfect timing. As the stars slowly filled the night sky, neither heart knew exactly what tomorrow would bring. But both carried the same quiet peace. Not because the future had already arrived, but because they had learned that God's timing is never measured by hurry. It is measured by wisdom, preparation, and love. My beloved child, don't skip because the next chapter will reveal how these two fictional journeys continue drawing closer together, proving that some of God's most meaningful blessings begin not with extraordinary signs, but with faithful hearts meeting in ordinary moments. The conversation that felt different ****. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this fictional, faith-inspired story now reaches a chapter where two journeys begin to unfold in ways neither heart could have planned. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. After the community service event ended, life returned to its familiar rhythm. The excitement of the day slowly faded, and everyone went back to their daily responsibilities. Yet something remained in both of your hearts. It wasn't a feeling of urgency or certainty about the future. It was simply gratitude for having shared a day filled with kindness, purpose, and genuine encouragement. The following week brought another opportunity to serve. The community center announced a weekend gathering where volunteers would prepare food baskets for families facing difficult times. Once again, people from every part of the neighborhood came together with one purpose: to help others without expecting recognition. Your soulmate arrived early, arranging tables and organizing supplies before anyone else appeared. As they worked quietly, they whispered a familiar prayer. Lord, thank you for another opportunity to serve. Whether today brings familiar faces or new friendships, help me reflect your love through patience, humility, and kindness. Let every conversation become an opportunity to encourage someone who may be carrying burdens I cannot see. Meanwhile, your own morning began with the same quiet spirit of gratitude. Before leaving home, you prayed for wisdom, asking God to help you notice people who might simply need someone willing to listen. You had learned that the greatest acts of compassion are often the smallest ones: offering a smile, sharing a meal, or giving another person your full attention. Don't skip because something beautiful is waiting for you. As volunteers gathered, you noticed your soulmate again. This time there was no awkward introduction because you had already met during the previous event. A warm smile was exchanged. "It's good to see you again," your soulmate said. "You too," you replied. "Looks like we keep ending up on the same volunteer team." Both of you laughed. Neither of you realized that everyone around you had already begun noticing how naturally your conversations flowed. Throughout the morning, you worked side by side, carefully packing food, writing encouraging notes for families, and preparing boxes for delivery. Between tasks, you shared stories about childhood memories, lessons learned through difficult seasons, and the importance of trusting God even when life doesn't unfold according to our plans. Listen carefully. This changes everything. At one point, a little girl helping with her parents walked over carrying a box that was almost too heavy for her to lift. Without hesitation, both you and your soulmate stepped forward at exactly the same moment. The little girl smiled brightly. "My mom says kind people always find each other," she said. Her innocent words made everyone nearby smile. Neither of you answered immediately, but both quietly reflected on the simple truth hidden inside her words. Later that afternoon, the volunteers gathered outside beneath the shade of tall trees to rest for a few minutes. The conversation turned toward gratitude, and one by one people shared what they were most thankful for. When it was your soulmate's turn, they spoke softly. "I'm thankful that God sometimes answers prayers by changing my heart before changing my circumstances. Looking back, I realize the waiting taught me patience, compassion, and trust. When your turn came, you smiled and said, 'I'm thankful for ordinary days like this.' They remind me that life's greatest blessings often begin through simple acts of kindness shared with people we never expected to meet." The group nodded in agreement. The elderly mentor who had organized many of these events quietly added, "Never underestimate what God can do when two people are committed to serving Him before serving themselves." Those words lingered in the peaceful afternoon air. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. Before everyone left, the coordinator asked if anyone would be willing to help organize future outreach programs. Without discussing it beforehand, both you and your soulmate volunteered. The coordinator smiled warmly. I had a feeling the two of you would say yes. As the sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon, both of you walked home with peaceful hearts. Neither of you knew exactly where this growing friendship might lead. There were no promises about tomorrow, no dramatic predictions, and no certainty about what the future would hold. There was simply gratitude. Gratitude for shared faith. Gratitude for meaningful conversations. Gratitude for another ordinary day that quietly became unforgettable. There was simply gratitude. Gratitude for shared faith. Gratitude for meaningful conversations. Gratitude for another ordinary day that quietly became unforgettable. That evening, your soulmate opened the familiar journal and wrote, "Lord, thank you for reminding me that your timing is always filled with wisdom. I no longer feel as though my life has been standing still. Every step has been leading me toward greater faith, deeper compassion, and friendships built upon honesty, service, and respect. Continue preparing my heart for every chapter you have written ahead." Meanwhile, you ended your day with the same quiet prayer. Father, thank you for showing me that hope often grows in ordinary places. Help me remain faithful in every opportunity you give me to serve others. If today's conversations are part of a greater purpose, teach me to walk patiently, humbly, and with complete trust in your perfect timing. As another peaceful night settled over the town, two hearts rested with the same quiet confidence. Not because they knew every detail of the future, but because they had learned that God's greatest gifts are often discovered while faithfully living one ordinary day at a time. My beloved child, don't skip because the next chapter will reveal how this fictional, faith-inspired journey begins, opening a beautiful new season of friendship, trust, and hope, showing that the strongest relationships are built slowly, prayerfully, and with hearts that seek God's wisdom above everything else. The season when every prayer began making sense. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this fictional, faith-inspired story now enters a chapter where every quiet prayer, every unseen act of kindness, and every season of waiting begins revealing its purpose. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. Neither you nor your soulmate realized that while you believed you were simply volunteering together, God had been quietly shaping two hearts that had first learned to serve before learning to receive. Every conversation had become a small stone laid upon the foundation of trust, and every ordinary moment was slowly becoming part of a much greater story. Another week passed, and the outreach team received an invitation to help organize a neighborhood festival celebrating families, friendship, and community. Volunteers spent several evenings preparing decorations, arranging tables, and planning activities for children. Once again, both of you accepted the opportunity without hesitation. Neither of you joined because of expectations. You joined because serving others had become part of who you were. Your soulmate arrived early as usual, carrying boxes filled with decorations. Before anyone else arrived, they quietly opened the familiar journal and offered a simple prayer. Lord, thank you for every opportunity to serve. Continue protecting my heart from pride, impatience, and fear. If today's moments seem ordinary, help me remember that you often work through ordinary moments to accomplish extraordinary purposes. Teach me to value people more than achievements and love more than recognition. After closing the journal, they smiled as the first volunteers began arriving. Meanwhile, your own morning began with quiet gratitude. As you prepared to leave home, you paused beside your window and watched the sunrise fill the sky with warm light. It reminded you that every new day is another invitation to live with kindness, forgiveness, and hope. You whispered, "Father, wherever you lead me today, let me become an encouragement to someone who needs it. Help me notice the quiet opportunities that others might overlook, and let every conversation reflect your peace. Don't skip because something beautiful is waiting for you." Throughout the day, both of you worked together decorating the community hall. Colorful banners filled the walls, flowers brightened every entrance, and children's laughter echoed across the playground. While arranging tables, your conversations became longer and more natural. You discovered shared memories from childhood, similar dreams of serving others, and a common belief that faith is best demonstrated through everyday compassion. At one point, rain unexpectedly began falling. Volunteers hurried to protect decorations from getting wet. Without speaking, both of you instinctively worked side by side, helping move supplies indoors while encouraging everyone to remain cheerful. One elderly volunteer laughed softly. "I've learned something watching the two of you," he said. You both looked at him curiously. He smiled warmly. The strongest partnerships usually begin with people who naturally help others before thinking about themselves. Neither of you knew what to say. You simply smiled and continued working. Listen carefully. This changes everything. Later that evening, after the rain had passed, the clouds slowly opened, revealing one of the most beautiful sunsets anyone had seen in months. Volunteers gathered outside for a few quiet moments before heading home. The elderly mentor who had guided so many people throughout the years looked toward the colorful sky and gently said, "Many people become impatient while waiting for tomorrow's blessings. But God often asks us to be faithful with today's responsibilities first." A grateful heart recognizes that preparation itself is part of the blessing. Those words settled deeply into both of your hearts. Walking together toward the parking area, the conversation turned to the lessons each of you had learned during the past year. Your soulmate quietly admitted, "There was a time when I believed my life had stopped moving forward. Now I realize God wasn't delaying my future. He was teaching me to become someone capable of protecting the blessings He had prepared." You smiled thoughtfully. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. Before leaving, your soulmate opened the familiar journal one final time that evening beneath the fading light of the sunset. "Lord, today I felt something different. Not excitement about the future, but peace in the present. Thank you for teaching me that real joy is not found in rushing ahead of your timing. It is, whatever tomorrow holds, I trust that every step is already known to you. Continue shaping my heart so I will always choose love, humility, patience, and truth." As the journal gently closed, the evening breeze moved quietly through the trees. The same sky stretched above. The same stars would soon appear. Yet another chapter had quietly unfolded. Not through dramatic signs. Not through extraordinary promises. But through faithful hearts learning to trust God's timing together. My beloved child, don't skip, because the next chapter will reveal how this growing friendship is tested through unexpected challenges, proving that relationships built upon faith, honesty, compassion, and mutual respect become stronger with every season they faithfully walk through together. The friendship that began changing both hearts. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this fictional, faith-inspired story now reaches a chapter where two hearts begin discovering that the greatest relationships are not built through dramatic moments, but through quiet faithfulness lived one day at a time. Stay until the very end, because what happened next changed everything. After several weeks of serving together, both you and your soulmate noticed something beautiful taking place. The conversations were becoming deeper. Trust was growing naturally. There was no pressure to impress one another, no need to pretend to be perfect, and no fear of speaking honestly. Instead, every conversation reflected kindness, humility, and a shared desire to honor God in everyday life. The following Saturday, another community project brought everyone together. This time, volunteers gathered to restore a small public garden that had been neglected for many years. Flowers would be planted, walking paths repaired, and benches restored so families could once again enjoy the peaceful space. As the morning sun rose over the garden, your soulmate arrived carrying gardening tools and a familiar smile. Before beginning the day's work, they quietly opened the journal that had accompanied them through every chapter of this journey. Lord, thank you for another opportunity to serve. Continue teaching me that every ordinary act of kindness matters. Help me remain patient, grateful, and faithful. If you are writing a story greater than I can see, give me the wisdom to trust every chapter, even before I understand it. After closing the journal, they looked across the garden and noticed you arriving with several other volunteers. You smiled warmly. Looks like we're serving together again. Your soulmate laughed softly. I'm beginning to think that's becoming a habit. Both of you smiled before joining the rest of the team. Don't skip, because something beautiful is waiting for you. Throughout the morning, everyone worked side by side planting flowers, trimming bushes, and cleaning the walking paths. While working together, the conversations became more personal. You shared stories about the people who had encouraged your faith. Your soulmate spoke about the difficult seasons that had taught patience, forgiveness, and trust in God's timing. Neither of you tried to impress the other. Neither of you exaggerated your experiences. You simply spoke honestly. That honesty became one of the strongest foundations of your growing friendship. Listen carefully. This changes everything. During a short break, the elderly mentor who had guided so many volunteers invited everyone to gather beneath a large oak tree for a few moments of reflection. Looking around at the smiling faces, the mentor gently said, "Flowers don't bloom the day they're planted. They need sunlight, rain, patience, and time. Relationships are much the same. The strongest ones grow slowly because they are rooted in trust, kindness, and faithfulness rather than excitement alone." Those words settled quietly into every heart. As everyone returned to work, your soulmate looked at the newly planted flowers and smiled. Maybe that's why God teaches us patience first, they said quietly. You nodded. So when beautiful things finally grow, we know how to care for them. The afternoon passed peacefully. Children laughed while helping water the flowers. Families walked through the restored garden, expressing gratitude to the volunteers. What had once been forgotten now overflowed with new life. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. As the sun slowly began setting, volunteers gathered for one final prayer before leaving. The mentor prayed softly. Lord, thank you for reminding us that the most meaningful things in life often grow slowly. Continue helping us become people who encourage others, serve with humility, and trust your perfect timing. Let every friendship we build reflect honesty, compassion, and your unfailing love. Everyone quietly whispered. Amen. Walking home beneath the evening sky, your soulmate opened the familiar journal one more time. Lord, today you reminded me that every season of waiting had a purpose. You were teaching me to become someone capable of building relationships rooted in faith instead of fear. Thank you for every lesson, every conversation, and every ordinary day that quietly became extraordinary through your presence. Continue leading my steps according to your wisdom. Meanwhile, you also ended the evening in prayer. Father, thank you for showing me that true friendship is one of your precious gifts. Help me continue living with humility, kindness, and gratitude. Teach me never to rush ahead of your timing, but to faithfully embrace every chapter you have prepared. As another peaceful night settled over the town, neither of you knew exactly what the future would hold. Yet both hearts rested with complete peace. Not because every answer had arrived, but because both had learned that God's greatest blessings are often built slowly, through faithful hearts, quiet prayers, ordinary conversations, and countless acts of love that gently prepare the way for something truly beautiful. My beloved child, don't skip because the next chapter will reveal how this fictional, faith-inspired journey enters a season where friendship grows even deeper, unexpected opportunities appear, and both hearts discover that God's timing is never late. It is always filled with wisdom, purpose, and love. The beautiful moment God had been preparing all along ****. My beloved child, don't skip. Listen carefully, because this is the final chapter of this fictional, faith-inspired journey. Stay until the very end because what happened next changed everything. Looking back over every season of waiting, both you and your soulmate finally began to understand a truth that had remained hidden from the beginning. The waiting had never been punishment. The delays had never been forgotten prayers. Every ordinary day, every lesson, every quiet act of kindness, and every moment of growth had been preparing two hearts to build a friendship rooted in faith, honesty, humility, and genuine compassion. The weeks turned into months, and serving together became a joyful part of everyday life. Neither of you rushed the journey or tried to force the future. Instead, you continued encouraging one another, praying together with the volunteer team, and finding happiness in simple moments that many people would have overlooked. The strongest part of your connection was not excitement, it was peace. Every conversation left both of you feeling encouraged, respected, and grateful. One early morning, before the community center opened, your soulmate arrived carrying the familiar journal that had witnessed every chapter of this journey. Sitting quietly beneath the old oak tree where so many prayers had been whispered, they slowly opened the final blank page. Lord, thank you for teaching me that your timing is always wiser than my own. There were days when I believed nothing was happening, yet you were quietly shaping my heart. Every season of waiting taught me patience. Every disappointment taught me trust. Every act of service taught me compassion. Today I understand that your greatest gifts are often prepared long before we recognize them. Whatever tomorrow holds, let my life continue reflecting your love through humility, kindness, and faithful obedience. With a peaceful smile, they gently closed the journal. Not because their journey with God had ended, but because a new season was beginning. Don't skip because something beautiful is waiting for you. Later that afternoon, the community gathered once again to celebrate another successful year of serving families in need. Children laughed while playing in the restored gardens. Elderly neighbors shared stories of hope. Volunteers embraced one another like family. The atmosphere was filled with gratitude instead of applause because everyone understood that the greatest achievements had been the lives quietly encouraged throughout the year. As everyone gathered beneath the evening sky, the elderly mentor who had guided so many people throughout the story smiled warmly before speaking one final time. My dear friends, the mentor said softly, people often spend their lives asking God to hurry. But love that lasts is rarely rushed. Strong faith is rarely built overnight. Beautiful friendships are rarely created in a single moment. God patiently prepares hearts before He prepares new chapters. Looking around today, I don't simply see volunteers. I see people whose lives have been transformed by choosing faith over fear, service over selfishness, and hope over discouragement. A peaceful silence filled the gathering. Every person reflected upon the journey that had brought them there. Listen carefully. This changes everything. As the celebration came to an end, your soulmate walked beside you through the quiet garden you had helped restore together months earlier. The flowers planted by many hands were now blooming beautifully. Children played safely along the paths. Families rested peacefully on the benches that volunteers had repaired with love and care. Your soulmate smiled gently. Do you remember the first day we met here? You laughed softly. I do. We were carrying heavy boxes. And somehow, your soulmate replied, God was carrying both of us through seasons we didn't fully understand. For a moment neither of you spoke. There was no need. The silence carried gratitude. The friendship carried trust. The future carried hope. As the sun slowly disappeared beyond the horizon, both of you offered one final prayer together. Father, thank you for every lesson that brought us here. Thank you for every delay that strengthened our faith, every challenge that deepened our compassion, and every ordinary day that quietly became extraordinary through your presence. Help us continue serving others with humility, loving people sincerely, and trusting your wisdom through every chapter still ahead. May our lives always reflect your peace and your love. Stay until the very end because this changes everything. As darkness gently gave way to countless stars, both hearts realized that the greatest blessing had never been simply meeting one another. The greatest blessing was becoming the kind of people who could build a relationship upon faith, honesty, patience, forgiveness, kindness, and unwavering trust in God. Those qualities would continue guiding every chapter still waiting to be written. My beloved child, as this fictional, faith-inspired story comes to its close, remember this timeless truth: God's timing is never measured by speed. It is measured by wisdom. The seasons that seem quiet often become the seasons that shape our strongest character. Every sincere prayer matters. Every act of kindness carries eternal value. Every step of obedience prepares us for blessings we may not yet understand. When we choose to walk faithfully each day, God uses even ordinary moments to write extraordinary stories of hope. As the first light of a brand new morning appeared on the horizon, both hearts stepped into the future with quiet confidence. They no longer worried about what tomorrow might bring because they had learned to trust the one who lovingly guides every tomorrow. The waiting had become gratitude. The questions had become peace. The ordinary days had become treasured memories. And through every chapter, one truth remained unchanged: God had been faithfully leading each step with perfect wisdom and unfailing love. And so this fictional journey ends not with uncertainty, but with peace. Not with fear, but with faith. Not with hurried answers, but with lasting hope. The greatest miracle was never that two paths crossed. The greatest miracle was that two hearts learned to trust God completely before